So we've been dipping into, swimming in Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings. The 49th day of his passing of his death, transition, was sometime, I think, early in the week. But of course, he's here in all of us, as are all the ancestors. We're just waking up to it. And this week we're focusing on feelings. At least we think true human beings don't have feelings. That mistake has been made in spiritual paths before and will probably continue to be made. We talked on Tuesday about fear, just began to touch it. Thich Nhat Hanh has a wonderful book on fear. He also has, what we're going to focus on today is anger. It's a wonderful book on anger. So I thought where I wanted to start is, I can't remember which song I shared this on in early on. It's a little talk that Thich Nhat Hanh gave at the Maryland Correctional Institute. So he was talking to prisoners. It's called Be Free Where You Are. And I just wanted to share, I've never read this any place else, and I was deeply moved by it. That this is how he began his talk to them and to us. And during this time, it seems appropriate. Dear friends, I wrote the following poem during the war in Vietnam after the town of Ben Tre was bombed by the United States Air Force. Ben Tre is the hometown of my colleague, Sister Chan Kwong. The U.S. forces completely destroyed the town because there were 5 or 6 guerrillas there. Later on, one officer declared that he had to bomb and destroy Ben Tre to save it from communism. We just keep doing this, don't we? This poem is about anger. I hold my face in my 2 hands. No, I am not crying. I hold my face in my 2 hands to keep my loneliness warm. You hold your face, your 2 hands. 2 hands protecting, 2 hands nourishing, 2 hands preventing my soul from leaving me in anger. I was very angry. It was not just my anger, but the anger of a whole nation. Anger is a kind of energy that makes us and the people around us suffer. As a monk, or we could say as a true human being, when I get angry, I practice caring for my anger. I don't allow it to cause suffering or destroy me. If you take care of your anger and are able to find relief, you will be able to live happily with much joy. 2 hands protecting, nourishing, just keeping us here, keeping the whole world right here. From Peace in Every Step. Thich Nhat Hanh talks a lot about anger. I actually, my experience of having been with Thich Nhat Hanh is, I think we all want to make Thich Nhat Hanh and maybe I've said this before, but we want to make Thich Nhat Hanh and lots of teachers saints. I think Thich Nhat Hanh practiced his whole life with anger. That's part of why he practiced so deeply. So here's what he says about about mindfulness of anger. Anger, in case you hadn't noticed, this is my commentary, is an unpleasant feeling. Although I think sometimes we kind of like righteous anger. It's complicated. But he says it's unpleasant if you really look, which is true. It is like a blazing flame that burns up our self control and causes us to say and do things that we regret later. Shante Davis says, I've thought about this a lot, and I actually at first thought he was exaggerating, but I actually think there's truth to it. So I'd encourage you maybe to think about it too. Shante Davis says that even one moment of anger can destroy everything good that you've done. I think of that in relationships sometimes is how a moment of anger can do a lot of harm. And then, of course, we try to come forward and do repairs and repentance. But anger is, when someone is angry, we can see clearly that she or he is abiding in hell. Anger or hatred are the materials from which hell is made. A mind without anger is open and fresh and sane. The absence of anger is the basis of real happiness and the basis of compassion. Practice with our anger for the sake of all beings. When our anger is placed under the lamp of mindfulness, it immediately begins to lose some of its destructive nature, just noticing that it's there. We can say to ourselves, breathing in, I know that anger is in me. Breathing out, I know that I am my anger. If we follow our breathing closely while we identify and mindfully observe our anger, it can no longer monopolize our consciousness. Awareness can be called upon to be a companion for our anger. Our awareness of our anger does not suppress it or drive it out. It just looks at it. It just stays with it. Thich Nhat Hanh, I don't think, I was looking at so many different things he has to say. I don't think I marked this, but he talks about it's like a mother caring for a baby. It's like just the baby's just squalling. Just be with it with tenderness and care. Mindfulness is not a judge. It is more, here he says, like an older sister looking after and comforting her younger sister in an affectionate and caring way. Just hold your face in your hands. We can concentrate on our breathing in order to maintain this mindfulness and to know ourselves fully. Okay. So now I marked a couple of things in his book on anger. Because to embody our deepest heart's desire in our everyday activity and in each moment, whatever we're feeling or doing, we need to know that everything is flowing and alive. It's so easy. Well, when we judge ourselves, we make ourselves an object, right? Would you just stop doing that? Look, you did it again. And then, of course, that's what we do with the other, too. It's like, ay, 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 I can't believe that person did. I mean, we all know this, right? And then, of course, we do this with nations. And looked at an article the other day. I mean, Buddhism talks about no self. The article was about there's really no nations. It's like there's just all these cut up lines that we put one place or another and they shift over time and they're moving all the time. And then we say, this nation did this or this nation did that. What if we really, no self, no nation? And there is a self, take responsibility. And there are nations, take responsibility. But what if we all simultaneously, that's what we're reaching here for, is paying attention in the particular, and know that it includes the whole world. Our practice, Thich Nhat Hanh says, is based on the insight of non-duality. Both our negative feelings and positive feelings are organic and belong to the same reality. So there's no need to fight. We only need to embrace and take care. Therefore, in the Buddhist tradition, meditation does not mean you transform yourself into a battlefield with the good fighting the evil. This is very important. This is very important. Over and over again. This is not about dominating yourself to turn yourself into a good person. I mean, how silly is that? And we do it all the time in one way, subtle or not. You may think that you have to combat evil and chase it out of your heart and mind. But this is wrong. The practice is to transform yourself. If you don't have garbage, you have nothing to use in order to make compost. And if you have no compost, you have nothing to nourish the flower in you. You need the suffering and the afflictions in you. Since they are organic, you know that you can transform them and make good use of them. Compost is amazing. Have you ever really studied compost? It's just like all this. I mean, Thich Nhat Hanh talks about this a lot. I haven't brought this part of his teaching forward, but you can easily find it. Is like, where does the flower and the compost and the garbage begin and end? You throw all this stuff. Well, I get to compost. Most people these days don't, because they live in cities, or you put stuff down the disposal. Anyway, you have a lot of different ways we have to get rid of it. It transforms. But you have to, with compost, to make good compost, you have to turn it. You have to let air into it, awareness into it. You have to water it. You have to really love the compost. And I think sometimes, anaerobic compost, which is compost that gets stuck, that doesn't get air and water, as it turns all black and tarry. I think that's what happens to those places in ourselves that don't get turned and aerated and watered. But there's an anaerobic place. Let's just give that a little attention too. It's all part of everything. It's not the problem that it is. It's how we perceive it and what we do with it. Our method of practice should be nonviolent. Nonviolence can be born only from the insight of non-duality or interbeing. This is the insight that everything is interconnected, and nothing can exist by itself alone. We have to remind ourselves of this. It's not, as human beings, our first impulse. Duality is where we so easily go. Come back. Body, breath. Where do you begin and end when you sit? Where? I can feel the edges of my skin if I do this, but when I sit, drop body and mind. Literally, I don't know where I begin and end. Doing violence to others is doing violence to yourself. If you do not have the insight of non-duality, you will still be violent. You will still want to punish, to suppress, and to destroy. That's why times of conflict in the world are, need I even say how terrible they are? And they're great opportunities. Practice with our states of body, heart, and mind for the whole world. We're not helpless. It's not happening out there. I mean, it is, and it's not. You have to penetrate the reality of non-duality. Then you will smile at both the flower and the garbage in you, and you will embrace both. And probably along the way also cry and fall down on your knees and everything in between. That's called being alive. This insight is the ground for your nonviolent action, your nonviolent thought, cultivating and watering the seeds of nonviolence in our hearts. When you have the insight of non-duality and interbeing, you take care of your body and the body of the world in the most non-violent way possible. You take care of your mental formations, including your anger, with non-violence. You take care of your brother, your sister, your father, your mother, your community, and your society with utmost tenderness. Tenderness. No violence can be born from this kind of attitude. You won't regard anyone as an enemy when you have penetrated the reality of interbe. The foundation of our practice is the insight of non-duality, the insight of non-violence. This insight teaches us how to treat our body with tenderness. Thinking some of you are caring for partners or parents who are ill. And of course, sometimes they probably drive you crazy. Or you don't even know how much you're probably driving them crazy. Or this is what, this is what. But ultimately, the feeling is, oh, just be so tender. And if we have bodies that are ill, how can we bring tenderness to our bodies and our minds right where we are? Then we can treat our anger and our fear and despair with tenderness. Anger has roots in non-anger elements. It has roots in the way we live our daily life. Oh my goodness, right back to daily life. How do you, when you put something on the counter, how do you place it? Do you put it down with tenderness, or you just sort of like throw it over there? I mean, really, just pay attention. When you're cleaning your house, are you resenting your house that it's dirty? I mean, really, look, I do all these things. And then I take a breath. And I think, wow, what an amazing thing that there is dirt on my floor that I perceive as dirt that is basically, actually, in my house, because I live in the country, it's earth that somehow found the bottom of my shoes and came in the door, and that I have this wonderful broom that I bought maybe 20 years ago at a Berkeley holiday sale that is just like the best thing that I ever invested in my whole life. And when I start sweeping with it, and then there's this little pile, and then you get a little dustpan, and then you put it in the dustpan, and it's like that. Then you get to move it to another place, and it turns into something else. But I'm a way too busy person. And something made my floor dirty. It's like pay attention on this level. I was just thinking, I looked at Kyle and I saw that she had her rakasu on, and then I saw others do too, and some of you do, and some of you just you wear them in a million different ways. But I thought before you put your rakasu on, you say a little prayer. It's like, how do we make our whole lives a little prayer? All of these rituals that we do in Zen are just to slow us down and to help us pay attention so we can live our vow. If we take good care of everything in us without discrimination, we prevent our negative energies from dominating. We reduce the strength of our negative seeds so that they won't overwhelm us. Touching suffering can help us nourish our compassion and be able to recognize happiness when it's there. How in the world are we going to recognize happiness if in the world of duality we don't understand what suffering and non-happiness feels like? It's like, use this amazing compost that's been given us, which is called life. If we are not in contact with pain, we cannot know what real happiness is. So touching suffering is our practice. But each one of us has limits. We cannot do more than we can do. Know your limits. It's like, don't watch the news 24/7. That's crazy. Please be aware of the suffering in the world, but pay attention to your limits and your body, heart, and mind. If you listen to too much suffering, the anger of other people, you will be affected. You will be in touch only with suffering, and you won't have the opportunity to be in touch with other positive elements. And this will destroy your balance. Therefore, in your daily life, you have to practice so that you can be in touch with elements that do not constantly express suffering. The sky, the birds, the trees, the flowers, children, whatever is refreshing, healing, and nourishing in us and around us. Please. I love bringing flowers in my house. Well, I love growing flowers. I think as a little girl, I remember focusing on flowers in the midst of nothing else made sense, but flowers always made sense to me. Not in a linear way, but they always just made me happy. So I keep fresh flowers on my altar in places where I can see them, because they always remind me there is happiness and joy, and that the flowers are born out of garbage. Garbage is born out of flowers, and then they appear like like, how amazing is that? You want to make up a daffodil? You want to make up anything? Mindfulness really is the practice of wonder. Sometimes when we do that little breathing exercise, and it's like present moment, wonderful moment, some part of me goes, oh, wonderful moment. It's wondrous. It's full of wonder. Waking up, being a true human being, is cultivating and knowing wonder in each moment, including the wonder of anger. Anger is arising. Oh, let's not skip that either. So here is a little, Thich Nhat Hanh offers this as a walking meditation, which you can do. But right now we'll do it as a little breathing exercise. Body and breath. Breathing in, I know that anger is here. Breathing out, I know that the anger is me. Breathing in, I know that anger is unpleasant. Breathing out, I know this feeling will pass. Breathing in, I am calm. Breathing out, I am strong enough to take care of this anger. Do that again. Breathing in, I know that anger is here. Breathing out, I know that anger is me. Breathing in, I know that anger is unpleasant. Breathing out, I know this feeling will pass. Breathing in, I am calm. Breathing out, I am strong enough to take care of this anger. Thich Nhat Hanh says, just keep doing it. Give our whole heart and mind to this practice. Being with our breath, our body, contact with whatever we are doing. And after a while, our anger will subside and we will feel stronger. And then we can continue to observe the anger directly and try to understand it. Practice is continuous practice. Life is alive, and it's going to, in one way or another, bring us exactly what it brings us. I was going to say what we need. Maybe that's even extra. It's just going to bring us what it brings us. And we're just going to help each other stabilize and the world stabilize. Just touch the earth. And then the earth shakes. They say the earth goddess reached back and the earth shook like a joyful woman. So because we are in a place where there is peace, as possibility of peace, or there is peace. If I look outside my door, it looks pretty peaceful out there. Let's keep feeling our feet on the earth and touching the earth and saying prayers, peace of the whole world, and being with each emotion that arises with a sense of, oh. So I'm going to put you in small groups, 3. Maybe you can just talk together about anger and how you practice with anger. Everybody, this isn't a topic all of you don't know something about.